A personal trainer who has to use an ileostomy bag after having his colon removed says it hasn't stopped his dream of becoming a fitness model. Blake Beckford has appeared in magazines proudly showing his bag on photographs.
He's already defied doctors by going back to bodybuilding and says he wants to be an inspiration to others. Victoria Davis reports.
When Blake Beckford was told he would need to use an ileostomy bag, he thought his life was over. But instead, he's fulfilled his dreams of becoming a personal trainer and aspiring fitness model.
I was so conscious of having the bag. I literally cried for probably a whole day. And then I looked at kind of finding some kind of inspiration to keep me going. Couldn't really seem to find anything, and that's when I kind of decided I wanted to kind of prove it to myself that I could achieve my original dream, which was to get into the fitness industry, and I wanted to do the modelling.
Blake was diagnosed with ulcerative colitis in 2003. He was so ill, he had no choice but to have his colon removed last year. Doctors told him he would never be able to train to the level needed to be a fitness model, but the 33-year-old from Stratford-upon-Avon decided to prove them wrong.
For me, my bag has given me my life back. One of the things that I want to do is to show people that you don't have to be ashamed of having a ostomy bag. I want to show that you can live a healthy, fit life and be in kind of magazines and not be kind of seen as having, oh, that's that person with a bag. It's just, that's that guy, he's in good shape.
Blake is one of many people taking the brave step to reveal the truth about their illness. Bethany Townsend from Worcester caused a storm on social media when she posted these holiday pictures of her sunbathing with a colostomy bag. But charities say more awareness means more acceptance.
It's helping to raise awareness for people who perhaps struggle with body image, who struggle to do the daily things that, ordinarily we take for granted, or people without a stoma would take for granted.
Blake says his bag is now part of him and isn't something he's ashamed of, but something he's grateful for. Victoria Davis, ITV News.
Well done to Blake. That's quite a change, isn't it?
I think he's very proud of what he's achieved.
Yes. Now, we're continuing our coverage on the commemorations for the 100th anniversary of the First World War. Amid all the bloodshed and slaughter, there was a moment during the war which has since become iconic.
Yes, on Christmas Day 1914, British and German troops lay down their weapons and held a brief truce. Captain Robert Hamilton of the 1st Battalion Royal Warwickshire Regiment wrote about the event in his diary. His grandson, Andrew Hamilton, has been speaking to Phil Brewster.
The war was supposed to have been over by now, but in December 1914, Britain and her allies were still bogged down in the trenches, with tens of thousands either dead or injured. On Christmas Eve, when home must have seemed a lifetime away, singing could suddenly be heard from the German trenches. Captain Robert Hamilton of 1st Battalion Royal Warwickshire Regiment was present that day and later wrote about it in his diary. The small leather-bound journal he kept now belongs to his grandson Andrew Hamilton, who recalls what his grandfather wrote.
Germans then sort of started to sing carols in the trenches and sang Deutschland, Deutschland über alles, and also sang a version of God Save the King, which obviously amused the Royal Warwicks.
Perhaps in the spirit of Christmas, some of the British soldiers decided to reciprocate.
Private Gregory, who had been my grandfather's batman or officer's servant, who apparently he's sacked for making a rubbish cup of tea, perhaps trying to get back into his good books, offered to go out and meet the Germans.
The next day, at dawn, close to the Belgian village of Saint-Yvon, soldiers that had been sworn enemies laid down their weapons and walked out into no man's land. In what was later to become known as the Christmas Truce, the two sides exchanged gifts and handshakes. There was even time for an impromptu kickabout.
A group of Royal Warwicks probably had a football for as a Christmas present, they blew it up and started a kick around. The Germans must have been watching in groups. It must have been like a sort of playground scene, and presumably a British Tommy sort of whacked one at the Germans, the German group, and probably they hit it back.
But it didn't last. After using the truce to bury their dead comrades, the fighting began again. Apart from one brief respite, which Captain Hamilton recalls in his diary.
On New Year's Day, a little dog trotted over no man's land and jumped into his trench. A message was tied round its neck. It was fussed over and the message gently removed and read out. "How are you, nicey Englishmen? We are all well. Please send the dog back." Well, the dog was fed some British bully beef and refused to return to the German trenches.
Captain Robert Hamilton survived the war and returned to his home near Stratford-upon-Avon before dying in 1959, aged 81. To this day, Andrew Hamilton treasures his grandfather's memories about life on the front line and the role he played in what he described as a unique day in history.
It was a sort of case of peace breaking out for a small time during, as you say, the war to end all wars, and it's humbling for me to think that he'd been involved in that.
Another extraordinary story from the Great War. Now the national and international news is just a few moments away, and Alistair Stewart has our headlines tonight.